I'm just really grateful for those people too, who are maybe they didn't deal with the same things that I did,
Mhm.
but they have a little more understanding of the struggle of someone who's a closeted queer, like Mormon boy trying to accept himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Duke's Download. Today, I am incredibly excited to sit down with the incredibly talented David Archuleta, the star who started his career on American Idol and who's captivated audiences with his voice and story for years. Fresh off the release of his New York Times bestselling memoir, Devout, Losing My Faith to Find Myself, which hit shelves February 17th, and details his raw journey from a devout Mormon upbringing to embracing his authentic self as an openly queer star, queer artist. David is also making waves with new music and an ongoing book tour. David, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, Duke.
Of course.
Excited to talk to you.
I'm thrilled, as I said, and your memoir, Devout, is a huge success. It's been described as a powerful coming out story that traces your path from a closeted teen in the Mormon church to a global pop star living openly. What inspired you to share your story right now? What made you decide that this was the time to open up?
Well, it's taken me this long to, I guess, feel comfortable in my own skin and in my own story, and to be honest. And I feel like I'm in a place where I've been able to make sense of it all and be able to share the story. And a lot of people have asked me how I got through my experiences and what it was like to come out, how I did it, especially growing up a Latter-day Saint, Church of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints or Mormon. So it took me a while to gather my thoughts. It's been a process of like 3 years of working on this book. But I feel like I needed that time to say things how I wanted to say them. And I'm really happy with how the book has turned out.
Did you, I'm not to go too deep into it, but did you write everything yourself, or did you work with a writer? I mean, my mom, you may know, is a musician. She worked on a book, 15 years ago now. She had she wrote it and they did interviews and everything, but she had a ghostwriter. But I mean, I think, and she was pretty honest, but I think, I've always been curious about that process of in terms of, did you record yourself talking? Did you just write it out by hand? Like, what was that process like?
So I wanted to make sure I wrote it. But I did work with a collaborator because I would get long-winded. So I needed help to summarize certain topics because there was a point where I was like around 100 pages over my word count. Way too much. So
well, you're a writer, so songwriter, writer. I mean, it's all kind of when you know how to express yourself. So I can imagine.
Well, I guess I don't know how to not say things short and concise. That was my problem. So Val, my collaborator, really helped me to stay on track because I also would get sidetracked in my writing. So she'd be like, hey, these are the focal points these are the ones that we talked about. We did plan and strategize together, and she really was a huge help and had some great additions as well to make sure that that there were good transition points and that it flowed. But I really wanted to make sure that it was my voice and that I wrote it myself. I had a ghostwriter on my first memoir I did when I was a teenager, and it was called Chords of Strength. And, it was fine, but I just felt like it wouldn't. This time I really wanted to tell my story. And it was like I'd given my agency and my words to other people all my life that I was like, it's time for me to take ownership of my story and what I have to say.
I was curious too about, obviously I'm pretty familiar with your story. I mean, I remember watching you, back at the beginning of your career, but, I know, not to bring up my mom again, but my mom is a musician. She started in the 80s, and I always have found that idea so fascinating. I know, like her, you guys, you started from humble beginnings, and worked your own way up through the industry. Were you always sure that that music and singing, that was your purpose in life? Or I know in her case, it kind of just happened, she didn't even really know that she even knew how to sing. It was more of just like a sort of spontaneous, natural journey. So I was curious, like, did you always know that that was your destiny, that that was your purpose in life, or was it sort of an accidental discovery that you had this talent?
You know, could you? I don't believe I was advised. Wait, who your mom
My mom is a singer. Her
was?
name's Belinda Carlisle. She was the
Oh,
lead
oh my
singer
gosh,
in the Go-Go's in the
yes,
80s.
yeah.
And
Belinda is amazing. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's well,
She,
I didn't know if you knew, and it's actually the first time I think I've ever brought it up in a podcast interview. I just, of course, as a musician, I thought, I look at I that's the way that I know, since I have no musical talent myself. That's my understanding of what it takes to grow up in the industry is through her. And I
mm.
just find it fascinating that people go on different paths in terms of how they get to to become a success. So
No, I guess I would relate to your mom's experience where it's like you don't really think of yourself as I didn't think of myself as anything special, like like talented above other people. I was just like I just love doing it,
mhm,
and it makes me feel good. Like when I'm performing, I just feel connected to something, and
mhm.
you just feel like you're in your element, and you just want to express. So it was more like my parents were like, "Whoa, like David's really into this. Like let's put him in. Like let's have him in perform at this and perform at that." And it just developed from there. And my dad would be like, David, don't you realize you're one of the greatest singers in the world? I was like, oh my God. I'm like, of course my dad would say something like that. But I think he felt like a confirmation. Like he felt validated
Mhm.
by his feelings and beliefs of me being such the greatest, one of the greatest singers in the world when I was doing so well on American Idol. And he would just be like, see, David, didn't I tell you? Like, you are one of the.
Well, you are.
I
I
was like,
mean,
okay, okay.
your success is a testament to your talent and also to your. I mean, what? How many years? I mean, I remember the time, but how many years have you been professionally? It's been what? 17, 16 years, 17 years, something like
It's
that.
been I think it's 18 years
18
since
years.
American Idol this year.
Unbelievable.
And yeah, it was, but I guess it's hard. It was hard for me to accept that. Like, I was just kind of like, I didn't feel like really deserving of any success. I always felt like there was something wrong with me that I had to fix. And I talk about that in the book as well.
Well, the
So
question I was going to ask you next was not to interrupt, but was, potentially touchy question, but like, what was the hardest point of the book, hardest part of the story to tell for you? Because you said you like to write, but was there a part in particular that you were like, this is difficult, more difficult than other subjects?
yeah, I think the hardest part for me was writing about my dad.
Mm,
And I guess just having to be honest about how difficult that dynamic was because when it's your parent and it's your dad, like you want to like love and respect them as well, but you also it's like but there's a lot of pain that came from this relationship
mhm,
and a lot of confusion, a lot of
mhm,
hurt, and I think it's just like I feel like if I'm being honest, it's like that relation trying to nurture that relationship stripped me of any like self-confidence and of my own voice and speaking up for myself. And in order to do that, in order to speak up for myself, I had to go against my dad.
mhm,
And I think that was where I realized I'm like, if I'm going to speak up for myself and place boundaries, it means I have to piss my dad off.
mhm,
And it was also a weird dynamic because I'm like, I'm just trying to set a boundary. I'm just trying to speak for myself. I'm just trying to express how I feel. And that upsets my dad. And that pisses him off to the point where he's like, no, you don't get it. And he would be like, I don't agree with you. And I'm like, Dad, I'm just trying to let you know how I feel.
mhm,
I'm just trying to, and that's when I learned how to speak up for myself, I was like, wait a second. I don't think someone can disagree with how I feel.
mhm,
That's for me to decide. Now, you may not, you may have a different perspective, but you can't keep invalidating how I feel. And I was like, this is where the issue comes in this relationship is my dad keeps invalidating my feelings
mhm.
and he keeps invalidating my opinion. And it's worked for him up until now, but now I'm like, no, Dad, I'm not going to let you do this anymore, to the point where I had to say, Dad, if you don't treat me like a son, I'm not going to have a relationship with you. And that really upset him. And I said, I'm blocking your number. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I love you, but I will not have a relationship with you. And that was really hard for me. I like broke down crying because I felt so guilty doing it. I was like, how can I do this to my dad? But at the same time, I was seeing them, I was like, my dad does not leave room for me to have my own feelings and thoughts and to make my own decisions. I'm in my 20s at this point. And I was like, my dad keeps invalidating me. So I had to set boundaries. And after 7 years of not talking to him, and I treated him like he was a dead person, like as if he died, and tried to get to know him through other people, like his dad, his aunts and uncles, his cousins, his siblings, to kind of get a better picture of who my dad is, because he's only showed me the part that he wanted me to see. Right. But it was like a very controlling part of my dad, and I wanted to see him more in a humanistic way, because I was pretty pissed off at him too. And after that, like, I gained compassion for him, but I also realized I don't have to excuse his behavior. I don't have to enable it. And with those boundaries, like 7 years later, now over 10 years later, like we're in a better place again, which I'm really happy about. That's not always the case. When you have like a difficult, toxic dynamic that you're trying to reconstruct and set new boundaries.
It's weird as you get older, you know, I mean, not to compare my experience to yours, but it is weird as you get older, you know, when you have some, and, you know, granted, I'm sure the space that you guys had gave you the opportunity to sort of reflect and to reevaluate, and talking to other family members so you could understand where he was coming from. And it's interesting as you get older, the way that your relationship with your parents or with your family can shift, and your understanding of why they did certain things. I've gone through it also, and but, you know, I'm sorry to hear that happened, but I'm also happy that that things are in a good place. And you know, I was, in terms of things being in a good place, I mean, obviously the book has been really well received. It's a massive critical and commercial success. But are you happy in terms of the response that you've gotten? What have your book tour events been like? With the response that you've gotten from readers and from people, from the public? Are you satisfied with the result?
I'm really happy with the feedback and the results so far. Of course, you know, there's imperfections in there. Like I mentioned, I was, like there was like a grammar error. Like, I don't know how, like someone who's checking all the grammar, there was a snake named Canelo, named after this professional boxer named Canelo from Mexico, and it got changed to Camilo. I was like, how did it get changed to Camilo? But I also messed up because I said he was a UFC fighter, and he's not. He's just a boxer. So I was like, oh, whoops. So I was like, oh, great. Like, I'm going to get all the people who follow boxing on my case. But otherwise, like, a lot of people have connected to, you know, toxic dynamics in family, and feeling like you have to put up with it, but trying to heal from it. And it's been cool to have those discussions on my book tour and in interviews. A lot of people who had a difficult time growing up in a high demand religion, and learning how to accept themselves, or if they decide to transition out of their religion that they grew up in, and how difficult that can be. I've seen a lot of people relate to that. So if anything, I'm glad that I get to connect with people, and then people who just read just to hear another perspective and another story. Like, I'm just really grateful for those people too, who are, maybe they didn't deal with the same things that I did, but they have a little more understanding of the struggle of someone who's a closeted queer, like Mormon boy, trying to accept himself. Yeah.
No, I love the fact that you put out new music, a 3-song EP, sort of in tandem with the book. One thing, I've followed you for a while. One thing that I love too is I'm a newly I say this semi-jokingly because I'm still kind of a dork, but I'm kind of becoming a self-proclaimed aficionado with like EDM and house music, and I love that
Hey.
you posted about that, and I love that you have a pretty wide variety, or the spectrum of taste when it comes to music. But what made you decide to put out the EP in tandem with the book? And in terms of other musical pursuits and projects that you're working on right now, what are some of the things in the pipeline, if anything, right now? I know you're
Well,
probably like,
I'm kind of curious. What EDM shows have you gotten into? Have you gone to any? Or were you saying, or you just
yeah.
been listening to?
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily just because the music itself is like, the most incredibly artistic, most critically acclaimed music ever, but like I've become a big John Summit fan,
Oh
and I've
yeah,
been to a few
yeah.
of his shows.
Oh,
SG
fun.
Lewis, like I'm
Yeah,
like it's been like it's so funny though because I started my journey with Kygo. And whenever I tell
yeah.
people that I'm a Kygo fan, like I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm really into house music," and they'd be like, "Who?" Like you? And I'm like, "Kygo," and they'd look at me like, "That is not." They're like into like deep house, like underground, and I'm like,
Hmm.
"I like Kygo." They're like, "That's like liking, the Gap or something." Of when it comes to house expert, music expert. I sound like such a dork, but
No, I
but
love
yeah.
it though.
So who do you? I mean, actually, you know what? Not only what are you working on, but also who are some of your favorite artists that you listen
Yeah.
to?
Um. Well, I really I've been a fan just because he was one of the first EDM artists I got familiar with. Dead Mouse.
Oh
I
yeah.
listen to a lot of Dead Mouse, and
Hmm.
it's like calming. It's like it just scratches an itch in my brain when
Hmm.
I listen to him. And I like to listen to his longer, like
Hmm.
not his radio edits, but like his longer
Yeah,
versions of his songs that are like
extended.
5 to 9 minutes. Yeah.
Right.
Um, so I really love him. I mean, S.G. Lewis is great too. I love Chris Lake. Chris Lake
Yeah.
is just like he's always such a good time.
Yeah.
He's on my playlist for at the gym too.
Yeah.
But I've liked Latin house as well. There's Bolo the DJ. There's Ocho, De Oro.
Hmm.
They're all really fun too. But
Hmm.
stuff I've been working on, so to circle back to you. You
I know.
mentioned
I
the
did the exact same.
Devout EP.
You said you like to go on.
I
I go
do.
on lots of tangents, so my apologies.
No, I like it. I love this. It makes it more fun. Um, and I just went to John Summit a few weeks ago. He did a show here in LA.
The pop up.
It was a pop-up show
Yeah,
and it was
yeah.
so
Yeah.
fun.
I
Are
was
you in
in
LA?
Mexico.
You went
And
in Mexico?
my parents actually live in Mexico City, so that's why
Oh my
I was there.
God.
And so I was there, and I found I was so, of course I was happy to be with my parents, but at the same time I woke up that morning. I had just gotten there the day before, and I see John Summit pop up in LA. I was like, like
Oh,
I miss. But I went to the Forum last year or 2 years ago
oh,
now, almost a year and a
fun.
half ago, and saw him. And I've seen it. I just went to what's it called? What's like they did a big EDM like festival in LA on New Year's Eve, and I
Oh,
went to
Countdown.
Countdown. Yeah, I went to
I was there
that.
too.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
Although, of
I was
course,
at John Summit set.
you were. Oh no way!
Yeah.
I
Dude,
was there.
we'll have to go together sometime
That'd be
because I
fun.
go
I'd love
to
that.
a
That'd
lot
be
of them.
fun.
I'm
Yeah, of
going to
course. That was
Beyond.
so funny. Not to go. I only have a certain amount of time, but I went to John Summit, and then I'm getting old. I'm getting a little older. My friend and I, we were like a group, and this one friend of mine and I started getting tired. And granted, I would have stayed. Like even if I was tired, I would have. It's like I can handle being up till 1 or 2 in the morning. But my friend was like a little more tired than I was, and so we actually left right after John Summit, and we had Taco Bell
Oh,
and champagne on the couch for New Year's Eve.
oh my
But
God.
I was
That
like, I
actually
wanted to
sounds
stay for
epic
Gorgon
though.
City. Like, come on, like
Ah,
But
Gorgon
anyway,
City was so packed though.
it was probably because it was New Year. It was
Or is
midnight,
it
right?
Gorgon
The
City?
night
Am I thinking of
before.
Gorgon City? I'm trying to think who was there, or maybe I'm thinking of who was it? I was trying to see what's his name. Sub Focus, I think was Sub
Oh
Focus was
yeah,
there. I was
yeah.
trying to see him, and then who was the other ones? Above and Beyond is who
Oh,
I ended up
right,
seeing.
right. Above and Beyond, right? Maybe that's what I was thinking of. I think it was
Okay.
Above and Beyond that were on at midnight. Yeah,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah,
But
it was
yeah, no, but
crazy packed there though. Almost was like, oh, I hope they don't do it here again because it is just too crowded.
it was kind of nuts, that
It was
whole event.
insane.
It was
Oh,
like the toilet. Anyway, we're really going off
yeah. Oh my
track.
God, for
But
real.
the porta potty situation was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Anyway, but back to you. What?
Yeah, I'm going to Cross next in a few weeks to San Diego. I'm going to where Dom Dalla is headlining,
Oh
and then
yeah.
beyond, they have such a great lineup. Hard Summer, I'm going to try and get to because they have Knock 2, and he's one of my favorites, and they have Zed, and it's just
No,
a great
Zed's
lineup. But
great. Were you okay? Now, okay. I promise we'll get back on track. Did you go to Coachella? Have you been? I mean, I know I'm assuming you've been, but did you go? Was it last year for 2025?
yeah, I did.
There. So
Hmm.
I was there. My mom actually performed. The Go-Go's performed
Oh,
there,
that's
which was
right.
really cool. And it was my first and only time so far there. But the
Oh,
Zed show that they had there was,
yes,
I mean, it was epic. But
it was.
my friend who I was with was literally just like standing there like this, like completely like overwhelmed by, because that show was like, you had girls up on, on the picnic tables dancing. It was just insane. The crowd for Zed was like out of control, and the lights and it was
Yeah,
amazing. But it was
it
anyway.
was.
But just regarding I mean, I've listened to both your older music, your newer music, Creme Brulee and Freedom, and I love that like you incorporate different genres and different styles into your. It's not like you're focused on one particular type of music. Um, Both in terms of the EP for along with the book and your future projects or things you're working on. What is the current focus of in terms of your style, your genre?
I'm trying to get into more of like a like what is it? Soulful kind of pop is what
Hmm.
I'm trying to get back into. Excuse me.
Hmm. Oh.
Because I enjoy pop. It's fun, but I also want something that's a little more just vocal, I guess. Like I've always liked R&B as well, so I'd like to
Hmm.
bring a little bit of that into it, but still keep it pop. But that's kind of where I'm trying to go. Like this, I'm trying to get back into like sitting and more grounded and like confident in myself and in my own skin, and writing songs from that place, which I am. And there's some songs I have lined up coming up that I'm excited about. But there are some songs in the book, in the audio book, they play at the very end after the acknowledgments. And I would say that's more of like a throwback, like a nostalgic place to go to with music because it's more like message driven, how I
Hmm.
was on American Idol. But it's that's not where I normally make music. I'm trying to be like more like sensual,
Yeah,
now not like sexy, but
I
definitely
know what
like
you mean. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. In terms of obviously your coming out journey was a pivotal moment, and I know you obviously spend a lot of the book reflecting on it, but you know, what advice would you give based on what you've gone through the last few years, and both in terms of your not just career wise, but on a personal level, and reckoning and reflecting and working through that experience? What advice would you give to people who, both people within LDS, people outside of the church, just in general, about, I always say to people, this is kind of, I think, a good place maybe to wrap up this reflection, but I always say to people, like, you get told things when you're young that, advice that your parents give or friends give or things you hear on, YouTube or whatever. But until you've actually gone through that process of reflecting and reckoning and processing it's kind of, you get, I think I mean, it's good to get good advice, but it also is like one of those things where you finally arrive at realizations where you go, now I get it. Like that thing that was told to me when I was young that I couldn't really understand until I went through it myself. But what would you say are the most important lessons you've learned and pieces of advice that you might try to give to people out there going through the same experience?
Advice I would give to people who maybe are in a similar situation that I may have been in, I would say, like, give yourself a chance to be heard. Give yourself a chance to um, also live your life as yourself. And you may have grown up in an environment where you're told who you are isn't okay, or there just isn't enough information for people around you to understand who you are. And I think it's worth giving yourself that space for you to understand yourself. I didn't understand myself very well when I first was coming to terms with my queerness. I thought it was something that was wrong and bad. And just, if you're constantly afraid of what you don't know, you don't give yourself a chance to hear more about it, to understand it better, and to be less afraid of it. And so if you give yourself that chance, you'll realize you don't need to be afraid of yourself. And there's so much beauty in it, so much beauty in being who you are and being queer. And so it may not be what you were taught to believe, but sometimes you have to challenge what you grew up and were raised to believe to really gain a fuller picture. Mm-hmm. And if you believe in God and still want to believe, if you still, hold on to beliefs and try to follow God, like, you can do that and still be who you are. I think sometimes you have to be willing to shift and give yourself that space, even if it means it could be scary, but sometimes you have to make some transitions in your life in order to be in a healthier environment, to be yourself and to thrive. And even though it's as scary as it is, I just wanted to let you know it's worth it. And it may be scary to start over again, but it's also so exciting to start over again.
Well, I mean, it's true. It's like, especially with religion, I mean, obviously it's an existential thing, especially when you've been raised in that environment. I mean, I've been on a bit of a faith journey myself and exploring things that, in terms of these, as you get older and your family gets older, I mean, you start reflecting a lot on mortality. This is not necessarily the most uplifting way to end the conversation, but, you get older, you start exploring like these questions. And then I assume as you grow up with it, and then you start reflecting on questioning, it's a heady, big deal, to start asking those questions. But I think you're right that in the end, even if it's not the easiest process, that, it can be an enlightening and life-changing experience for the better,
Yeah.
So anyway, David, thank you so much. I could go on and on for hours, but I know you're a busy man. Thank you for taking the time. Congratulations.
Dude, so good to talk to you. And we really do. We need let's hit up a DJ set sometime.
I'd love it. Let's do it. For sure.
Okay.
See you later.
All right. We'll see you.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Duke's Download. David Archuleta, amazing guest, great guy. So grateful to all of you for joining. Thank you to David for joining us today. Next week's episode is going to be a Ask Duke Questions episode. Anything relating to politics, to pop culture, anything you want to know about me, almost anything. But yeah, I am so excited to connect with you directly. Feel free to leave a comment, leave your questions in the comments, I should say. And if you want to send an email, it's questions@dukesdownload.com. And so next Wednesday, I will be answering your questions and excited to chat directly with all of you. Have a good one. Thank you for joining me today on Duke's Download. This podcast is part of Pride House Media, hosted by me, Duke Mason, and produced and edited by Josh Rosenzweig. Original music composed by Nell Balaban. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And while you're there, leave us a rating and review. It really helps others to discover the show. I'd love to stay connected with you, so join the conversation by following me at James Duke Mason on Instagram and X, or by emailing me at questions@dukesdownload.com.